Oh, yes. What's happening, everybody? It's Tuesday night, 10 o'clock Central Time. We've got a UFC card coming up this Saturday, March 2nd, headlined by Gaziev versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. So you know what that means when it's Tuesday at 10. It means it's time for Just the Tip with me, your host, Uncle Weezy, where we're going to break down all 11 of these fights. I'll break down 9 of them. I've written up 9 of them. 2 of them are very, very late replacement fights. One was made today. One was made late yesterday. But we've got these fights coming up this Saturday, March 2nd. A card that was supposed to be taking place in Saudi Arabia is now going to be taking place in Vegas. We're going to have a lot of Arab-based fighters on this card, and it's going to be headlined by a heavyweight banger. And there are some interesting 205-pound fights on this card. There are going to be some debuts. There's going to be some late-minute replacements. So it's an interesting card to break down from a stylistic perspective here. And we're going to break down all of these fights so that we can find ways to stack cash tickets like flapjacks, just like we did last week. I'm enjoying a lovely little beverage here that I like to call Bookie Tears because we killed it last week, up over 7 units tracked. The greasy 4-leg parlay hit for another 3.5 units untracked. Had a pretty good week with the picks, but a much better week with the bets. Just give you a little bit of a recap of what we did here. We had a couple of losing bets. One of them was the Mateus Mendoza money line, which was parlayed with the Naimov money line. I had 1.5 units on that at plus 140. Mendoza did not get the benefit of that close decision. So that, unfortunately, was a 3.5 unit swing to the downside. But we still closed up 7.27 units. We lost 0.2 of a unit on Royval by submission. We lost a 1/4 unit on Duncan to win in round 3. We lost a 1/2 unit on Duncan to win in round 2. And we lost a 1/2 unit on Puelles to win by submission. That's like, I think, what was it? 1.25, 1.45, 2.95 units total in losing bets. We hit Brandon Royval the win by decision for 0.3 of a unit at plus 700. That was a 2.1 unit win. We hit the under 1.5 rounds in the Torres versus Duncan fight, minus 170 for 1.7 units. So we hit that for 1. We had the fight goes to decision in Zellhuber versus Prado. That was a plus 135 bet that hit for 1 unit. So 1.35 units to the upside there. We had Muhammad Naimov, was Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. We had him to win inside the distance at minus 125 for 1.25 units. That was a 1 unit win. We had a parlay with the fight doesn't go to decision in the Ortega-Rodriguez fight, parlayed with the under 2.5 rounds in the Torres-Duncan fight. That hit for 1.57 units to the upside. We had the Victor Altamirano plus 3.5 points handicap. He got robbed of a decision, but because it was the plus 3.5 points, we didn't need to get the win. We just had to cover that 3.5 points handicap, which we did. That was 1.15 units to the upside. And then we hit a real nice bet, 1/2 unit on Hani Barcelos to win by submission at plus 410. So we got 2.05 units to the upside on that one, up 7.27 units. Also had a 1/2 unit on the greasy 4-legger, which cashed at plus 683 this week. So up about another 3.4 units there. So yeah, we definitely hit it. Almost 11 units to the upside, tracked and untracked, and up 7.27 units tracked. So we're definitely looking to keep the ball rolling this week. And it's one of those cards, everybody. There's 11 fights. 2 of them are late-minute replacements. Other ones are replacements as well, just less of short notice for the people that stepped in. Fight was supposed to be in Saudi Arabia. Now it's in Vegas. So, and then there's some guys like Alex Perez and Matt Schnell who you really have to watch these guys on the scale in order to really know whether you want to bet on the fight or not, because these guys have a very hard time making the walk. So after having a big week last week, I want to make sure that we don't get too big for our britches here, that we kind of exercise good bankroll management, protect the gains that we made last week, and really try to find the spots that stick out. And there aren't a lot this week. The fighters that I think are going to win are juiced to the tits right now on the money line. So I'm looking forward to chatting it up with you guys. breaking down these fights and trying to find the little holes in the defense that the bookies have here in order to be able to find a couple of bets where we can get a couple of units to the upside this week. Wanted to see what's going on with the people in the chat here. We've got my guy Victor De Jesus is in the room. He's saying, "Oh, yes, what's up, Weezy in chat? Happy Matt Schnell and Alex Perez fight week. Maybe, definitely maybe. Just like my favorite Oasis album, definitely maybe these guys might be fighting on Saturday, both Schnell and Perez. Let's hope they can both make it to the scale, that they can both make weight, and they both actually make the walk on Saturday." We got TH in the room saying, "Oi." We got Dick's Insider in the room saying, "Oi, Prophet Weezias." I know we're going to get into it, but man, I've got a gut feeling Zahabi's going to pull off a greasy split decision, which is very concerning because I have Javid parlayed already. Yeah, Javid Basharat at minus 700 just doesn't make any sense, because this is a fight that's scheduled, the bookies are saying this goes to decision almost 2/3 of the time, right? So the judges are going to get involved. And if the bookies need a parlay buster, one of these fights that goes to decision is probably going to become that parlay buster. And that once you leave one of those opportunities, one of those doors open for the bookies to get exactly what they need, whether it's Anders getting robbed of a decision by Jamie Pickett in a cage pushing fest, or it's Zahabi and Basharat in a low volume striking exhibition for somebody to get a back door to win on damage, supposedly. So we always have to worry about that, man. We always have to worry about that when we're parlaying up big numbers like minus 700, minus 1200. What can go wrong a lot of times finds a way to actually go wrong and make your bets go tits up. So we got to be careful this week. And Vic saying, "Hit that like, boys. Let's do it." We got Paku MMA in the room. What's happening today? Ratea saying, "Oi, hello, Weezy in chat. All the best for this weekend's card. Let's shave some ass. Let's get it, man." We got my guy Nigel Lee, a.k.a. Money Bank Locks, in the room saying, "Yeah, I'm here. MBL in the house. Oi, and in Hulk, brother Weezy. Let's get it." Fellow Sigma Chi sharing the chat with us tonight. Good to see you hanging out in here. We got Daz Files saying, "Oi, it's a beard off. Was surprised to learn a beard makes someone more trustable." Does it really? I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I always thought that was just mustaches that made people more trustable and more manly, more trustable, and appearing to have more integrity. But science is strange sometimes. These things can be proven. We got Kiwi Brew in the room saying, "Churl, what's up, dude?" We got my guy Lou Betcha in the room. Free Lou Betcha on Twitter. We got to have a Twitter, boycott something in order to get Lou Betcha freed. We got to start putting some heat on the powers that be here and let them know that this isn't going to be stood for anymore. Good to see you hanging out in here, Lou. We got King Bicky in the room who hit a 55-1 parlay last Saturday. Let's go. Those are the thing. That's the stuff that dreams are made of right there. So congratulations to you, King Bicky, on a 55-1 parlay, my man. We've got Kiwi Brew saying, "Let's not overthink it. Neckbeard with a V in his last name. Probably own a couple of silly hats." He might own a couple of silly hats. I haven't seen one yet, but he might. He might. And the hats are going undefeated, ladies and gentlemen. We got Remdog in the room saying, "Oi." We've got a gross infection saying, "Oi." We've got Hop Chandler in the room saying, "What's good, Weezy, my guy?" People hating on this card, but we got Umar, Christian Leroy Duncan, Mokaev, Al-Selwadi, a banger card for prospects, and I couldn't agree more. These are some of the better prospects that we have on the roster in all of the divisions. Guys that do have a lot of upside and a lot of hype, especially in Umar, Duncan, and Mokaev. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they show out on Saturday. We got Dixon saying, "Weezy, this is a friendly reminder that fighters named Vinicius have not fared very well in the UFC. Exhibit A, Vinicius Mojera. Exhibit B, Vinicius Salvador, and soon to be Exhibit 3, Vinicius Oliveira." Yeah, we're going to find out, man. Late notice replacement. He's got this Swedish kid stepping in who I think trains in Sweden, and I think that fight was made late last night. So this guy is either on a plane right now, or maybe has just landed, or is maybe even still working out to get his visa to come over here and work. So, I mean, this is going to be a wild one to see when this dude arrives in Las Vegas, because Sweden to Las Vegas is not an easy flight, ladies and gentlemen. That's a long one. You're going to be in the air probably 11 to 12 hours. I mean, that's you're halfway across the world there. So, I mean, this is not going to be easy for this young man, this Swedish kid, making this UFC debut, having to weigh in at his usual weight, 135 pounds, less than 72 hours before he fucking accepts the fight. And you've got a weight cut and a 12-hour flight mixed in there with the late notice of like, hey, you're fighting in the UFC this Saturday. Get everything ready that you need to get ready in order to make sure that you got what you need to fight. And boy, I mean, it's just such a tall order. We got Yippee Kaye saying, yes, sauce, Weezy this. Let's smoke these bookies again. I encourage everyone to smash the like and subscribe. I encourage everybody to do the same. Appreciate you, Yippee Kaye, for the kind words, my man. The trend is your friend until the end. We used to say that when we used to trade on the floor of the Chicago Stock Exchange, man. Just keep going with the trend until the trend changes. Go with it, and it's a good thing to do. We got Hop Chandler saying, Weezy, $2.99 in 2 weeks. I'm so excited. Micro a Charles Johnson skullet. Let's go. Dude, if you're really excited about it, I could probably suggest about 100 things that you could do that would be more useful and less stupid than growing a skullet. I could encourage you to do a number of things. Now, we don't have time right now today. We got a lot of work to do, but let me just say, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Spend some time with your family. Go outside and get your feet on some grass, breathe some fresh air. Spend some time with people that you enjoy spending time with, do something you enjoy doing. But for the love of God, don't pay a barber who's going to encourage you. Like, look, I could do this for you, but do you really want me to give you this terrible haircut? The skullet. Don't be a part of the skullet gang, Hap Chandler. It's not. Don't do it. Don't do it, please. For the love of God, don't. This is a tough card to find a squeeze, says to Fubu. I agree, man. And the bookies have to make lines, Fubu. We don't have to bet them as gamblers. So this is going to be a good week to exercise good bankroll management and take advantage of any of the mistakes that they do make. We got Lou saying they're trying to add Dino Bravo versus Coco Beware to this card. Gorilla Monsoon told me that it could main event anywhere in the country. Well, I mean, with the Birdman Coco Beware, with that phenomenal drop kick that he has, you really do know that he's going to put on a good show, win or lose every single time. And Dino Bravo is just, he's good wherever, I mean, like he's got everything that you need. He's got good striking. He's got good wrestling. He's flashy. He's likable. He's good on the mic. That's a great fight. So we could get that one right smack dab in the middle. Like maybe that's the featured prelim right there. Coco Beware, at probably 63 years old these days, I've heard he can still get up there and fly, baby. So that could be a good one. We got Rem Dog in the room saying probably going to play some totals this week since the money lines are so wide. That's probably the way to do it. There are some ones that are kind of sticking out for me. Just don't know how active I want to be this week. We got Cuban Assassin saying, Weezy, happy let's get Raul Rosas on Xanax week. Let's go, man. We got the MMA Jackal in the room. What is happening, dude? Good to see you hanging out in here. We got Fubu saying the Rosas fight is off. No, I thought it has been officially pulled. I think it has been officially pulled. And I believe that Ricky Tercios is claiming victory, saying that he won because Raul Rosas, there's been accusations of shenanigans and breaking the Bushido code and disrespecting the Bushido code. So, yes, I believe that the fight has been officially pulled. Yeah, and we did hit that four-legger, baby. I love hitting those four-leggers, and we're going to try to make it two in a row this week, around a similar number between 600, 700, something like that. But it's always good to hit those. And when you pile that on top of, a really good gambling week, it's just, it all came together like butt cheeks this last weekend, and we got to hope that we can keep the ball rolling this week. We got Hap saying, I've never seen a display of cardio outside the UFC like Al-Selwadi put on against Hardwick. I wonder if he can keep that up in the UFC. Guy is Marab that can strike. It was a phenomenal cardio performance. He never stopped moving the entire fight. When you see guys move like he's moved in the first round of that fight, where there's constant lateral movement, you're always on your toes, right? So you're activating all those fast twitch muscles from your Achilles tendon all the way up to your ass. And he never stopped moving for not just the first 5 minutes, but that movement never stopped for the full 15. Definitely thought that Al-Selwadi's performance, the best part of it, was the cardio that he displayed in that performance. And that's going to make him a very difficult opponent to deal with, because he can, when you watch the tape on this guy, he can not just strike, but he can wrestle as well. So he's going to be able to use that cardio to push a pace for 15 consecutive minutes while using that well-rounded skill set to find the weakness in his opponent's game. And if he does those two things well and has good game plans, he's going to find ways to win fights in the UFC. Yeah, I echo that sentiment exactly, Fubu. These are a lot of fun fights, but they're not fun lines to bet on. You know, but laying minus 500 on a money line ain't fun. It's just not fun. I don't enjoy that. So yeah, I'm with you, man. And Hap saying what's up to the Jackal and Paku, and Jackal saying what's up to Hap and Paku. We got Tehran in the room. What is up, Tehran? Good to see you. We got Hap Chandler in here. We got MMA Jackal saying, I'm going to drift off to sleep. The sweet sounds of Uncle Weezy's breakdowns. Let's go, man. We got Paku saying, Hap TJ, let's go, boys. We got Lou Betcha saying, Charles Johnson's skullet isn't my favorite hairstyle, but it is my least favorite hairstyle. It's definitely probably my least favorite too. I think because it's a choice. He made a choice and it's a bad one, but it is what it is, man. You know, I don't hate Charles Johnson. I just hate the haircut, you know, but it's all right. He's coming off a big win. He's got a tough one coming up next against Jake Hadley. And I know the skullet is going to be in full effect. He's like making that a part of his brand going forward, and he's embracing it. So God bless him. You know, sometimes doubling down on a really bad hand actually works sometimes. It actually freaks out the guy on the other side of the table. He's going, I wonder what he's got. He's betting strong, you know, and Charles Johnson is bluffing big into that skullet being a part of his brand. And personally, I think he's going to wind up busted because of it, but we'll see. We got Hap Chandler saying skullet gang. Let's go. This card's super weak. Can't wait until UFC 299 and 300. 299 is phenomenal. When it comes to picks, do you trust finishing ability or cardio more? I always go cardio on gut instinct, but it usually bites me in the butt. Yeah, I mean, well, the third factor that you got to mix in there is always durability, because cardio doesn't do you much good unless you're durable, right? Because if you can get sparked by one punch, and the fact that you can go 15 minutes might not mean anything. So when it comes to finishing ability and cardio, and I'm trying to, and fighter A's got cardio and fighter B's a finisher. The thing that I'm looking for in A and B now, the next step, durability. And if I can find a durability advantage one way or another there, that's going to usually lead me to either stay away from the bet or to favor one of those fighters. And if I can get a cardio advantage along with a durability advantage, then that is a good combination of skills to have against somebody who is finish dependent. Cole Stein in the room is saying, oi, happy Tuesday. Same to you, my man. We got Tehran saying, like, who cares about Rozenstruik versus Gaziev? I care. Dude, Shamil Gaziev is a good heavyweight prospect at this point. And to give him a guy like Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who's had, several 5-round fights, has got a ton of power, and has got one particular thing about his skill set that makes him very dangerous. It's going to be interesting to see if Gaziev can wrestle this dude and find early success with that and kind of neutralize what Rozenstruik does best. I think it's going to be a really good main event and a really fun fight to watch. Card is not super weak. It has a bunch of banger prospect fighters. The main event is cheeks, though. I like the main event. I like Gaziev, but we'll see. Teron saying that Apex cards just don't get me out of bed. I hear you about that, man. I don't like the Apex either. I get you, Teron, but trust me, you will enjoy this one, brother. We got Yes Freak in the room saying, let's go. We got J-Bone saying, oi. We got J-Bone saying, what's up, Unc? Hope you're doing good. All is well, my man. Coming off a huge week. Looking to make it 2 in a row in terms of the winning side here. Yes Freak saying WGCI. Herb Kent for life. GCI, a nice rhythm and blues radio station here in Chicago, Illinois, that is a Chicago institution for years. Herb Kent, a legend on that channel. Good to see you hanging out in here, Yes Freak. We got Half Chandler saying someone like Al-Selwadi with natural great cardio paired with a mastermind like Saif is going to be a problem. I can see him breaking through. Shamil Gaziev is a savage. I don't even like a lot of Dagestani fighters because I think they're too wrestle heavy, but this dude is a finisher. Yes, sir. And A.R. Smith saying, I agree. It will be interesting to see how Gaziev does against a high-ranking heavyweight. Curious if he gasses. Yeah, the cardio still needs to be proven, and this is a 5-round fight. So I think that's one of the things that makes it really interesting here. What is your best on-the-spot prediction you got? Dude, I'll tell you what, Hap Chandler, I am very confident that Umar Nurmagomedov goes out there and wins this fight against Bekzat Almakhan. You heard it here first, everybody. I'm calling it. I'm saying it right now. Just a tip. Uncle Weezy, 10 o'clock Central Time, Tuesday, February 27th, 10:30 Central Time. You heard your Uncle Weezy say it, and say it with confidence. Umar Nurmagomedov is going to win this fight. Fucking book it. You're welcome. Tehran saying, like, I'm going to be excited as hell for 299 and 300. Tehran loves Power 92. That's another Chicago radio station. I like the college stations because the college stations play a little bit of everything. 88.7, 89.3. Those are the Northwestern and Loyola radio stations, my 2 favorite radio stations to listen to. And great GCI is a great station too. Jackal saying the Apex is what sucks about this card. Good young prospects in a decent main event. Not a bad card, just a bad venue. Yeah, and Bekzat is a savage. He's a good fighter. I don't know if he's too small. I think he's got good size. He's going to be undersized just a little bit compared to Umar. But and yes, I do only bet on the UFC. I only cap the UFC, so I only bet on it. You know, the other sports, I leave those things to those professionals. I go hard on the UFC, and we're about to go hard on this card, you guys. 49 of you in here hanging out live. I'm going to share my screen with you guys, and we are going to, yeah, these are the results from last week, up 7.27 units here, and we're going to move on to the statistics. And we're going to start talking about the curtain jerker of the night here, which is Abdul-Kareem Al-Selwadi going up against Loik Radzhabov. Let me see. I've got a banner for you guys here with the lines. And we're going to see Al-Selwadi a minus 182 favorite. Loik plus 157 is the underdog. Fight doesn't go to decision, right at a 50% implied probability right now at plus 100. So let's first start talking about Abdul-Kareem Al-Selwadi. He's going to be 3.5 years younger, and he's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage over Radzhabov. And Abdul is very accomplished minute winner. He does a great job of blending his wrestling and his striking, and he has the tools to win minutes wherever the fight goes. Abdul is 5 wins and 0 losses to the decision in his pro career, so his ability to win minutes on the regional scene has been well established. His conditioning, his footwork, his boxing, his wrestling, his top control, his scrambling ability, and his submission game all check out. So he looks to be ready for the UFC, in my opinion. And Al-Selwadi's striking looked fantastic in the Hardwick fight on Dana White's Contender Series. He attempted 237 distance strikes in 13 minutes of distance striking. There were 2 minutes of control time in that fight. So he kept up a furious pace for the whole fight, attempting 18.23 distance strikes per minute and landing 5.23 of them. His lateral movement was fantastic, as was his footwork. He was a hard target to find due to the lateral movement. He darted into range, throwing combinations, exiting on angles, and continuing to move. It's a very energy-intensive style, but he managed to keep it up for the full 15 minutes, even managed to mix in 6 takedown attempts, getting one of them and accruing 2 minutes of control time. So he definitely demonstrated the ability to win minutes in that fight with his striking. And the wrestling really checks out for Abdul. He wins a ton of minutes with it on the regional scene, and he has the conditioning to continue to wrestle effectively, even in the championship rounds. Abdul not only excels in getting his takedown attempts at a high percentage, but he's also excellent at keeping his opponent down once he gets him there, and he does a good job of landing ground and pound, advancing to dominant positions, and hunting for submissions, as Abdul is 2 wins and 0 losses to the submission in his pro career. I haven't seen much of him off his back yet, but he can really scramble, and he has excellent conditioning, so I'm guessing he can get back up if he gets taken down. Now, Loik Radzhabov has the overall and UFC experience advantages with 5 more pro fights, 90 more minutes of professional cage time in the same amount of time as a pro fighter. Loik also has 2 more UFC fights and 22 more minutes of octagon time, as Al-Selwadi will be making his UFC debut on Saturday. And Loik has been the better finisher as a pro. He's got a 70% finish rate overall in 17 pro wins. He's got 5 submissions and 7 knockouts. And in addition to only being finished once in 23 pro fights, while Al-Selwadi has been finished in all 3 of his pro losses. All 3 came by way of knockout. So Loik does appear to be the more opportunistic finisher, as well as being the more durable fighter in this matchup. And Loik is difficult to deal with on the feet. He's not very technical, elusive, or fast, but he is durable. He pressures forward nonstop, and he throws with power and purpose. He has a really good style that suits his strengths as a fighter. Loik uses his pressure because he trusts his durability. He throws with power hooks while coming forward, and that can serve 2 purposes. 1, he lands a big shot that hurts or drops his opponent. And 2, if that doesn't happen, it sets up Loik's entries into the clinch and on his takedowns. And he wrestles a lot, and he wins minutes with his grappling game. Loik's opponents know he's going to wrestle, so they not only have to worry about the takedown entries, but also the pressure and power hooks on the feet. So Loik's striking style really suits his strengths as a fighter, and it's taken him pretty far thus far in his career. Now, Loik is also a high-volume wrestler. He's attempting almost 14 takedowns per 15 minutes in the UFC and getting 7.3 of them. He outcontrols his opponents 34% to 11%. Winning over 75% of the control time positions his fights are in. Loik uses his striking to set up the entries on his takedowns, and he's relentless with the wrestling when he's uncomfortable on the feet. He's 5-0 to the submission in his pro career, and he's got 2 north-south chokes, 1 rear naked choke, 1 anaconda choke, and 1 guillotine. So he can get a number of different chokes from different positions on the mat. He definitely has the ability to wrestle at the UFC level. And even though his efficiency isn't where it needs to be, he's still a very capable grappler at this level. And Loik has fought the better strength of schedule over his pro career. He fought for $1 million twice in PFL, and he's fought the tougher dudes, even though Al-Selwadi has also faced a solid level of regional scene competition. I can safely say that Loik has the strength of schedule, though, in this matchup. Now, this is a high-level fight between 2 experienced and well-rounded veterans. These guys have combined for 41 professional fights and 32 professional wins. Radzhabov is a 2-time PFL finalist at 155 pounds. And Al-Selwadi is a former Desert Force featherweight champion, and he was also the Brave CF and Fury FC lightweight champion as well. Both guys have 5-round experience, a solid strength of schedule, and well-rounded skill sets. Now, on the Al-Selwadi side, I like the conditioning. I like the footwork at distance. And I think Loik has the better, I like Al-Selwadi's conditioning and footwork at distance better. And on the Loik side, I think he's got the better strength of schedule and the bigger power shots on the feet, in addition to having the durability advantage. This is going to be a close fight. These dudes are really well matched, in my opinion. The biggest differences I've seen between the two are the durability and power advantages on the Radzhabov side. So I took a 1.5 unit shot on the finish-only prop for Loik Radzhabov due to the fact that Al-Selwadi has been knocked out in all of his losses. And And that Loik, when he's on the feet, because he wants to wrestle, he kind of pressures pretty relentlessly. And he always is throwing with power and looking to end your night or drop you so that he can get on top of you. So I like that finish only prop for Radzhabov here. Now, Abdul, though, he's got the better conditioning and he's got the better minute winning skills at distance striking range. And when he gets guys down, he tends to keep them there for longer than Loik does. So my pick for this fight will be to lean towards the minute winning and the conditioning advantages that Al-Selwadi has. And I'm going to pick him to win by decision. But I also want to take advantage of what I think is a power differential for Radzhabov and a durability differential for Radzhabov here and bet that finish only prop. There is one of the losses for Abdul-Kareem Al-Selwadi that was in Brave to a Brazilian guy. I forget what his name is, but he took a nasty knockout in that one. I believe it was a hook or an elbow, and like he got up, like trying to go shake his hand, his opponent's hand, like after being out for a long time, and then just dropped again. I mean, it was a nasty knockout. Al-Selwadi is taking some damage, so I'm going to take advantage of that durability differential, the power differential, bet the finish only prop here, but the pick is going to be Abdul-Kareem Al-Selwadi to win this fight by decision. The only time we saw Radzhabov finished was in his last fight, and it should be noted that Radzhabov missed weight for the first time in his career in that fight, and that I think he might have come in with an injury or far less than 100%. But he, I think he also struggled with the southpaw striking of Ribeiro and the real hard inside low kicks. Abdul-Kareem Al-Selwadi moves a lot more, so he doesn't throw a lot of kicks. And he's an orthodox fighter, so I don't think he's gonna have those same problems. So Al-Selwadi by decision is the pick. Let's see what you guys. We got easy bets in the room saying everyone's favorite Unk. What's up, Weezy? Had to pop in real quick and catch the replay tomorrow. Let's shave ass this week. Let's get it, man. And we got MMA Jackal saying, I'm booking Umar. If Uncle Weezy says book it, I picked Umar to be champion by 2025. MMA Jackal, we're probably the only two people in the world on Umar right now, but we're going to talk about it later. And when we break down this fight later on, I guarantee you after this show, you're going to see everybody on Umar Nurmagomedov after I break down all the beautiful advantages that he's going to have on Saturday in the cage. But let's move on to this next fight, is we're going to break down, or we're not going to break this one down. It's Ludovic Klein versus AJ Cunningham. We got Ludovic Klein is already a minus 800 favorite in this fight. AJ Cunningham taking this fight. This fight just got announced today, I believe. Or was it? No, Klein was last night. This one was just last night. So he's going to have to, AJ Cunningham is going to have to make weight on 5 days notice and fight on 6 days notice. So this is definitely a very tough road to hoe against a guy like Klein, who's, on a 4-fight unbeaten streak. He's 3-0-1 in his last 4. Big win over Ignacio Bahamondes, an upset win over Mason Jones. Had a really close fight against Jai Herbert, where he almost got a finish in that fight. Ludovic definitely is a very dangerous fighter. He's got an 80% finish rate in 25 pro fights and 20 pro wins. He's hot right now. And AJ Cunningham, we're going to remember him from his Contender Series performance against Stephen Wynn, where he really got 7 shades of shit beaten out of him and took a really bad loss in that fight. If you look at the striking numbers in that, it was really one-sided. As you see, Stephen Wynn outstriking him 103-69, 101-68 at distance. And he stuffed all the takedown attempts and really just kind of finished this one 4 minutes and 6 seconds into round number 2. And since then, we've seen Cunningham get a win. He came back in the Real Deal Championships, RDC 9, as real as it gets, you guys. He got a win over Justice Lamperez. The wins before that coming to Jason Mullen in Fury FC, to Shea Conley in LFA, and to Jonathan Jackson in AMF. And his last win comes against the loss comes against Javier El Mariachi Garcia in LFA 102, a unanimous decision win there. This kid Cunningham's tough. He's a tough kid. He scraps law school MMA. So I believe that's Memphis, Tennessee, or it's right there around Arkansas, around the Arkansas, Tennessee border, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But yeah, so a good local Midwest prospect here in Cunningham. That's 11-3. He's lost to Solo Hatley and Javier Garcia and Stephen Wynn. 3 solid prospects overall, and he's beaten some mid-level guys here. But he's coming in and facing Ludovic Klein on short notice. I'll just bring up the stats right here. You see Klein with a positive 0.32 distance striking differential, almost 50% accuracy, 60% defense. He's landed 2 knockdowns in 237 distance strikes, so he's got almost a 1% distance knockdown percentage. He's landed 9 knockdown or takedowns and only allowed 2. 83% takedown defense, 45% takedown accuracy, both above average for the division, but he's a low volume wrestler. He kind of prefers to stay standing. About 60% of his fights do stay standing. And when they're not, he's winning about 74% of the control time positions. So Ludovic's got 8 wins by submission. He's got 8 wins by knockout, and he's got 4 wins by decision. And he's done a good job of winning minutes at the UFC level. The only guy that beat him in the UFC by decision was I thought it was Landwehr. Landwehr beat him by sub, though. Landwehr kind of broke him late in that fight with constant pressure and output. But AJ Cunningham, this is just a very, very difficult test for him on short notice. Super tough kid, scrappy kid. He's going to come to fight, and he's going to give Ludovic all he can handle, but Ludovic's minus 800 here for a reason. He's the more experienced guy. He's a pretty well-rounded guy, AJ Cunningham in his own right. 4 submissions, 4 knockouts, and 3 wins by decision. So AJ's, he can get it done in a number of different ways too, and he's going to come to scrap. Should be a fun fight. But, I mean, I think that Ludovic Klein should win this, and there's good potential that he could also win this one inside the distance. But right now I noticed on the prop template that the over 1.5 for this fight is reasonably priced, seeing as Ludovic Klein's his fights have went over 1.5 rounds 6 of 7 times, as we can see right there. We're getting a minus 115 for the over 1.5. That's a 53% implied probability, but 66% of lightweight fights do go over 1.5 rounds. AJ Cunningham has no quit in him, and he's a very durable dude. And Ludovic Klein, while he does have a nasty head kick, and if that head kick lands, your night is probably ending pretty quick. And he's got a really slick and opportunistic submission game in his own right. But we see Ludovic has only finished 1 of his 4 UFC wins. So he's not this murderous finisher at the UFC level. So this could be a bet with 6 of 7 fights going over 1.5 rounds, with it being underpriced by 13% here compared to the benchmark for the division, that this could be a plus EV bet where you're getting a very underpriced over 1.5 here at minus 115 for the division. And then you can count on the durability and toughness of AJ Cunningham to get you to that 7.5 minute mark. I don't know if I'm going to play it. I don't like betting on these short notice fights because there's a lot of variance there. It's not just short notice for the guy that took the fight on short notice. Ludovic Klein didn't know that he was fighting AJ Cunningham until last night, and he probably doesn't even know who the hell he was. So he's got some adjusting to do here. He's making a weight cut while trying to figure out who his opponent is too. So I just see a little bit of variance here. Probably going to stay away, but this over 1.5 rounds doesn't look like the worst look to me. I'll pick, just for the sake of having a pick right now, I'm going to pick Ludovic Klein to win this one by decision. But like I said, you guys, I wasn't able to tape this. It just happened too late in the week. But I wanted to get the stats out to the Patreon members, and I wanted to get the numbers out onto the prop templates so that we could look at the over-under props for this fight. But yeah, Klein by decision is the pick. But like I said, it's unresearched. Don't worry about that pick for this fight. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. We've got Remdog is saying, I think Al-Selwadi overperformed in Contender Series. He was plus 310, and now he's favored greater than Humbeski was. Yeah, I mean, that's it's a good point to mention that there's been a guy who was, Hardwick was a minus 400 favorite against Al-Selwadi and Dana White's Contender Series. Al-Selwadi performed very, very well, and now here he is, a big favorite as a UFC debutant to a guy in Loik Radzhabov, who's very experienced and well-rounded. Hap Chandler saying biggest bantamweights on the roster, Weezy: O'Malley, Bautista, Umar, and Corey. Yeah, that all makes perfect sense. Those guys are huge, huge bantamweights. Paku saying, I really like Al-Selwadi. This will look similar to the Rombeski versus Radzhabov fight. The striking pressure and of Al-Selwadi will be too much for Radzhabov. It's going to be a great fight, man. These guys are both high level, and it's a great way to kick off the card. Loik has had a problem defending leg kicks his whole career. He also doesn't do well against guys that stand their ground or he can't make back up. Yeah, because he is a pressure fighter, and he's either pressuring by throwing those power shots or by shooting in on the takedowns. But yeah, Hausch Manfio ate up his legs. Natan Schulte ate up his legs, and then we saw it in the Rombeski fight as well. So yeah, this is a guy that you can't really count on to make good defensive moves defending against those leg kicks. But I think Al-Selwadi might be better suited to 145 pounds, and Loik's physicality may spoil his party. We'll see about that. We'll see. And ring a ding ding, you guys. Did that Flamingo ring in sick? Yeah, he probably did, because Gogo Flamingo very rarely makes it to my Tuesday shows. It's always the Wednesday shows that he makes it to. So yeah, he probably rang in sick. So Kiwi Brew's going to get the last word this time with the $20 donation, keeping the lights on here in his Uncle Weezy studio. Seriously, Kiwi, thank you so much for your generosity. You and Gogo and everybody else that donated to the show last week made it one of my most profitable shows of the entire, made it my most profitable show of the entire year. So really appreciate the support of everybody that watches, that hits that thumbs up button, that hits that subscribe button, and especially to the people that join the Patreon and support the work financially. Big ups to all of you guys. Thank you so much. We got Habib saying, what's up, Uncle? Good to see you in here, Habib. We've got Hap saying Al-Selwadi is my pick, but I get the durability of Loik. Interesting take, Weezy. Yeah, he is a very durable dude. Ton of heart. Dude, he even, that fight against not Schulte, the five rounder against Hausch Manfio, he had the flu in that fight, and he was getting 7 shades of shit beaten out of him in the 4th round, and his corner had to basically push him out there for the 5th because he was so dead, so exhausted, and so sick. And he came out there and he won the 5th round. The guy's got a ton of heart. He's very durable, and there's no quit in him. So I like this finish only prop. I think it's one of my favorite ways to play this fight. And we got Jay's MMA in the room saying, what's up, Uncle? At work watching the show. Thanks for coming out, Jay's. Let's get on to this next fight, you guys. It is going to be the Christian Leroy Duncan fight. We got Duncan is a minus 300 favorite. We got Ribeiro, the plus 250 underdog, and the fight doesn't go to decision here. Juice to the tits right now, and minus 400 for this fight. So let's get these stats up on the screen for you guys, and let's first start talking about Christian Leroy Duncan, otherwise known as CLD, a hell of a hyped prospect. Duncan is always going to have solid measurables advantages in almost any matchup. He's 3 years younger than Claudio. He's 1 inch taller, and he's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. He's also a switch stance fighter against an orthodox, and that's an advantage on paper. Christian's a very durable fighter. He's never been finished in 10 professional fights and 23 amateur fights, while we've seen Ribeiro be finished in 3 of his 4 career losses. Duncan's conditioning is also shown to be very good as well, so I like his chances to win the later minutes of this fight due to those advantages that he has. And Duncan's striking is really fun to watch. He's such a naturally gifted athlete, and he has such great length for the division. He's flashy, and he throws a wide variety of offensive weapons. Tons of kicks, lots of spinning shit, everything thrown with flash and panache. He doesn't really throw techniques that work, though. No jabs, no hooks, no straight rights. And he switches stances constantly. And he does it so often that he never really seems to find his own range. And he hasn't really demonstrated the ability to win minutes at range with his gifts. Instead, he elects to throw low percentage, high energy output techniques that are meant to land big and finish the fight, but they're low percentage and they very rarely do land. Christian is still young and very inexperienced, he's still young and he's very experienced due to his amateur career, but he needs to tighten up his striking. Work with someone who can actually teach him how to box properly and take advantage of his length and athleticism properly. Because if he could do that, then the power shots would come so much easier when he countered his opponents, when they tried to close the distance. Duncan really looks the part. He glides out there. And he throws flashy attacks in a similar fashion to a young John Jones. He really looks like John Jones out there. They have that same length. They have that same natural athleticism and ability to make really complicated striking techniques look easy and effortless. The sky really is the limit for Christian Leroy Duncan. If he can learn to tighten things up and kind of take this striking attack, which has 500 different weapons in it, and kind of narrow down those weapons to the more utilitarian and useful and effective weapons, and mix in the flashy shit as 10 to 15% of your output rather than like 60% of your output, and maybe stay in a stance for long enough to find your own range from that stance and what attacks are actually working. The guy is all talent, but there's no process to his game whatsoever. So that's a little bit scary. And when you're laying juice like you're laying on Christian this week, it's you need to know that he's going to get that finish, because if he doesn't, the way that he fights isn't really winning minutes yet. And I rate Duncan as the better grappler in this matchup. He shows great takedown defense and anti-grappling on the regional scene, and his unusual length makes him live to snatch up chokes that other fighters wouldn't be able to pull off. He's got a solid clinch game and anti-grappling, and he definitely has the ability to win minutes and moments with his top game, ground and pound, and submissions. I rate Duncan as the more dangerous guy in the clinch and on the mat here, and I give CLD a slight overall and UFC strength to schedule advantage here, but not by a whole lot. Now, Claudio Ribeiro has a little more pro MMA experience overall, with 5 more fights and 10 more minutes of pro cage time in 3.5 more years as a pro fighter. And Ribeiro has raw power. He's not particularly technical. He winds up on everything he throws, and he tries to take your head off. His low leg kicks are nasty, especially when his opponent is in the orthodox stance, and he throws wide hooks from the hip. And help you if they land. Claudio is 11 wins and 2 losses to the knockout in his career, and all 11 pro wins for Claudio come by way of knockout. So this guy has serious power that has to be respected, especially early in fights. 7 of his KO wins come in the first round, 2 come in the second, and 1 in the 5th. So Claudio is most dangerous early in fights when he's fresh. Thus far in the UFC, Claudio has a positive 0.5 distance striking differential with 51% accuracy and a 1.79% distance knockdown percentage. So his 34.2 or 34.62% distance striking defense is about as bad as it gets, though. And that's a recipe for disaster against a long and flashy striker like Christian Leroy Duncan. Now, there's a lot of reasons to like CLD in this spot. He's younger, he's taller, he's longer. He's more experienced overall and in the UFC. He's the more technical and diverse striker, and he's demonstrated a more well-rounded game than Ribeiro, who's never won a fight by any other way but KO. Ribeiro needs to pressure forward, not give Duncan space to switch stances and maintain distance with his kicks, and find a way to land one of those trademark big bombs. If he doesn't, I think Chris is more durable. He has the better conditioning, and he has more ways to win this fight. He's better everywhere except for power, and Duncan has never been finished in 10 pro and 23 amateur fights. So counting on a guy who's outmatched everywhere but power to knock out a guy that's never been finished is a very tall order. I think this is probably a sloppy fight, but I'm going to pick Christian Leroy Duncan to win this fight and pick him to win it by 3rd round knockout. KO round 3 is I think Duncan's durability advantage and conditioning advantage in this fight is going to make a pretty big difference here. So I'm looking for him to win this one, but man, I promise you guys, if you lay minus 400, minus 300 on Christian Leroy Duncan, there's probably going to be points of this fight where you want to throw your remote through your television because Christian Leroy Duncan is throwing nothing but spinning hook kicks that are hitting nothing but fresh air. So we'll have to see how this one plays out. But, you know, I do like Christian Leroy Duncan to get another win here and continue his rise through the middleweight division. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Do I think Ribeiro can make it dirty and get it done? I think if he tries to make it dirty and kind of clinch up, I think Christian's going to be better in the clinch. I just really like what Christian does in the clinch, exchanges and on the mat. Great takedown defense, great get-ups when he does get taken down. And when he gets on top, he's really, really good there. He's surprisingly good there for somebody that is such a gifted distance striker as well. So, I mean, I don't think he can make it dirty and get it done. I think Christian's a lot better than Claudio Ribeiro everywhere. But Ribeiro's got power, and that is always the great equalizer. And, you know, you can be as technical, as smooth, as precise as it gets. Man, if you wind up in the pocket and that dude Ribeiro throws one of those hooks from behind his hip that's coming all the way from Sao Paulo and it lands on your chin, it doesn't matter how technical, smooth, and durable you are. You're probably getting dropped and knocked out. So, yeah, I mean, like Ribeiro's best chance here is the puncher's chance, but I think that Christian Leroy Duncan's just got a lot more ways to win this fight. We got Curtis Clark in the room saying, singular most confident pick this week. I know it's early, but I might ask you same later in the week. I already told everybody, Curtis, you heard it here first. Umar Nurmagomedov is going to win this fight. You watch. You watch everybody else come out the rest of the week and start saying, they like Umar. They like Umar. They're just copying me, man. Definitely Umar Nurmagomedov. Remdog saying Ribeiro going to make this a firefight in the smaller cage. Think it ends early. Liking the under 1.5. I don't mind the under 1.5 either. Not with these guys. Both of them have bad striking defense, according to the numbers. We can see here Christian Leroy Duncan, 49% distance striking defense is not good. But if you think 49% is bad, what do you think about 34% for Claudio Ribeiro? So, yeah, when you see two guys who are dynamic and powerful strikers, and both guys have bad distance striking defense, it's a recipe for an early knockout, and an under 1.5 is always a solid look in those situations. Yeah, and you just took the words out of my mouth there. Neither one is defensively responsible on the feet at all. What do horses eat? Ribeiro's corner. Hey, I love that, dude. I love the hey walkouts. Dana White's Contender Series walkout. And if you follow Mike's MMA picks on Twitter, he always posts the walkouts for Ribeiro during fight week, which I always enjoy watching. We got Claudio screwed, blued, and tattooed. Let's go. We got that hidden treasure in the room. You kind of wanting a CLD finish only money line or second and third round TKO. Yeah, I think that those are good looks, man. I think he's going to be an attritional kind of a KO. So I like all of those looks. The finish only is probably juice to the tits though. For that fight, let's have a look. Because we only have props available on BetOnline. BetOnline always first to the market with props. So always on just a tip. We're always using BetOnline betting lines here. So we got CLD minus 300 on the money line. He is plus 350 by points, plus 750 by submission, and minus 120 by KO. And the finish only prop is minus 300. I think it's a pretty good look, but god damn, Claudio Ribeiro has power. So, man, I don't know if I want to lay minus 300 and keep my butthole clenched for 15 minutes while that Ribeiro is throwing hooks from fucking Sao Paulo, man. CLD, same game parlay on DK over 5 or 6 minutes or so as well. It's not a bad look, man. Yeah, dude, Kiwi Brew knows that your Uncle Weezy brings the hot takes every once in a while. And today I'm bringing the hot take, and I'm telling you, Umar wins this fight. Yippee-ki-yay saying, thanks for the insider info, Weezy. I'll hold do that. Hold that Umar information just to yourself so you don't get arrested. Umar is in for the parlay. Are there enough underdogs to justify the 9,700 in DFS? I don't think you have to play them in this week in DFS because there's so many big favorites that looks like they should be finishing, and like guys like what's his name in the co-main event, the Brazilian guy Petrino, Eryk Anders. A lot of these guys are probably getting finishes. Even Mokaev and the other light or flyweight, who's facing Schnell. These guys could all get finishes. So, I mean, I think that you can definitely you can stay away from Umar potentially this week at 9,700, but you're going to have to get some underdogs in the lineup this week. We got, Anders never finishes, but that's because he's never fought anyone as low level as Jamie Pickett. So yeah, he's fighting Jamie Pickett this week, so he will be getting a finish. Let's see. All right, so next fight, you guys, though, is going to be an interesting one here. It's Aiemann Zahabi, who's a massive underdog at plus 500 right now to the Snow Leopard, Javid Basharat, minus 800. In this economy, minus 800. I don't know, man. Fight doesn't go to decision, plus 150 here. So the bookies are also telling you that there's like a 65% chance that this one sees the scorecards. 2 out of 3 times, this one sees the scorecards where there could be potential chicanery, and they're asking you to lay minus 800 on the favorite. That's a combination of things that I don't think is a good idea to do. But let's talk about this fight because it's a very interesting one. We'll get these stats up on the screen. Let's see right there. There we go. And let's first start talking about Aiemann Zahabi's advantages in this fight after I get a sip of my signature beverage here, which I call Bookie Tears. Bookie Tears, shot and a half of tequila, grapefruit soda from Mexico, either the Jarritos or this Mexican Squirt, pinch of salt, lime wedge. Bookie Tears. It's one of the most enjoyable and refreshing beverages that a man can drink. You're welcome. You don't just get top-notch MMA advice on this channel. You also get great drink recipes as well. Aiemann Zahabi has a little more UFC experience. He's got 2 more fights than Umar, or I mean, not Umar. He's got 2 more fights than Javid and 11 more minutes of octagon time. Aiemann is a low-volume counter striker. He attempts 6.15 less distance strikes per minute than his opponents do. However, he's very precise and defensively responsible at distance as well, which makes him dangerous. Aiemann has got a 73.43% distance striking defense, which is elite, and he's landed 3 knockdowns in 6 UFC fights and finished 2 of his 4 UFC wins by way of KO. Aiemann is landing a knockdown on 1.78% of the distance strikes that he lands. He's very frustrating to watch because he does nothing, but when he actually does choose to throw, he's accurate and powerful. He absolutely melted Draco Rodriguez with a perfect overhand right, and he dropped Aori Kwai-Leng with a perfect left hook that ended the fight. Zahabi has real power in both hands, and he's willing to wait for the right opportunities to let his hands go. And Aimann's a BJJ black belt. Now, he never uses his wrestling or ground game, though, but he does have it in his back pocket. He has plus grappling efficiency with 47.5% control time, but he's only landed 1 takedown in 6 UFC fights, and he does a solid job of stuffing takedowns with 75% career takedown defense in the UFC. And he's only allowed 4.91% control time allowed. So getting an offensive grappling game going against Zahabi is very difficult to do. Now, Javid Basharat is 8 years younger than Aiemann, and he's 1 inch taller, and he's going to have a 1 inch reach advantage, and he's going to have the way bigger head. This dude looks like a stunt puppet from the Muppets. I mean, he's got these narrow-ass shoulders, but his head is huge, and it's crazy because a guy with that giant and easy to hit of a head should not have 65% distance striking defense. So big ups to Javid Basharat for having like an almost unusually large head, but being able to use that to move that big ass head of his, keep it out of distance striking danger, which he does very well. And even though Javid is 8 years younger than Aiemann, he's actually the more experienced and definitely the more active fighter overall. Javid has 3 more professional fights and over 20 more minutes of pro cage time in 3.5 years less as a pro. So he's also been the far more active fighter as a pro, fighting twice a year in comparison only once a year for Aiemann Zahabi. And Javid is a very well-rounded fighter for only 28 years of age. He's 14-0 as a pro. He's got 6 wins by submission, 5 by knockout, and 3 by decision. So he's got multiple paths to victory. Javid shows excellent fight IQ, great conditioning, and dependable durability. He's a very exciting prospect that promises to be winning fights for a long time at the UFC level. Javid's distance striking metrics in a 37-minute sample size are elite. He's got a positive 2.57 distance striking differential. He's got 56% accuracy and 65% defense. All of those metrics are way above average for the division. He's landing 6.34 distance strikes per minute, and he only absorbs 3.77. He's never been dropped in the UFC, and he spends almost 75% of his octagon time at distance striking range, where he's done an excellent job of winning minutes. Javid does such an excellent job of staying long when he strikes. He goes first, he explodes into range, and isn't there for the counter because he's exiting on angles. He's really cerebral striking, and this young man is going to get better as he goes on. And this dude also has excellent grappling metrics. He's averaging 1.79 takedowns per 15 minutes on 3.88 attempts. He gets his takedowns at 46%, and he defends them at 86%, both far above average for the division. He's winning over 67% of the control time positions in his fights by out-controlling his opponents 18% to 8.6%. His efficiency numbers are through the roof due to the fact that Javid has attempted 13 takedowns, and he's had 28 attempted against him. That means he only attempts 32% of the total takedowns in his fights, but he's managing to win almost 68% of the control time positions. That is very impressive grappling efficiency ratings right there. Now, Javid is a minus 700 favorite here. That's an 87.5% implied probability. He definitely should be a big favorite, but with most lines this week, the parlay boys have pushed the envelope way too far. Javid is younger, he's taller, he's longer, he's more experienced, he's faster, he's the better minute winner at range and in the grappling exchanges, and he's been the far more active fighter recently. Zahabi's a low-volume counter striker who has proven that he can find moments that change the trajectory of a fight. It's the really efficient minute winning of Javid versus the low output, high precision striking of Zahabi. I'm not laying the juice here, but maybe a Javid by decision bet is worth a look at minus 150 or better. I'm definitely picking Javid to win this fight by decision, but I'm not sure there's a plus EV way to bet the Javid side now that the money line has been blown out to minus 700. But keep in mind here that Aiemann Zahabi is a very, very efficient moment winner. He doesn't do much, but when he does do something, there's a much higher percentage that it's going to land, that it's going to change the trajectory of the fight. So, maybe Zahabi lands big shots in a couple of rounds and can cover a plus 3.5 points handicap here. He's plus 250 on the plus 3.5 points handicap. That's a pretty wide line. And this fight is favored to go to decision. So if Zahabi can find a way to win one of these rounds, the plus 3.5 points handicap at plus 250 is going to look like a gift in retrospect. But I have no tracked action on this fight as of right now. And the official pick is going to be a very boring Javid Basharat. I'm not calling Javid boring. I'm calling my pick boring. It's going to be Basharat to win by decision here. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Let's see here. We've got I love this. That was so good. Let's see here. You better have just mispronounced Pedro, said Kiwi Brew. I did not. Man. We got Matt R saying Anders finished Dawkins, who finished Pickett, just to give you a sense of how low level Pickett is. Yeah, I mean, dude, you lose to Dennis Tialulin as well. So yeah, you've got you've got the MMA math there with Anders beating Dawkins and Dawkins beating Pickett, but you've also got the fact that Jamie Pickett got finished by Dennis Tialulin. I paid a minute quarter unit out of principle. There's nothing wrong with that. I think I might get to the same bet, a quarter unit. Anything can happen in these sports. Lucas Olzawi, another card, seems like all favorites and one dog wins. Who's the dog? I don't know, man. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to give you one at the end of the show. Alex Perez, if everything is okay at the scales, is my favorite dog. Yeah, we'll see how he looks at the scales. It's going to be very important for him and Schnell to determine whether they have any value at all on their money lines, is how they look on the scales. Dude, I'm a Perez fanboy. I cannot see a way he wins this. It's going to be a tough fight for him. Remdog saying, I don't like the quick turnaround for Zahabi. Yeah, dude, the quick turnaround for Zahabi. Yeah, man. He fought 9 months ago. And for him, that's like a ridiculously quick turnaround. Like every time Zahabi wins, you'll hear him say in the post-fight press conference, I'm looking to get more active. And it always makes me laugh out loud because he's never going to be more active. This guy's career has lasted 11 years and he has 11 fights. I think this dude hates fighting. I just don't think he likes fighting at all, because if he did, he'd find a way to get in the cage more than once a year. Matt R is saying, I'm not a fanboy, but I believe Mokaev is extremely overrated. He pretty much has almost lost most of his fights. Another dog I like is Rozenstruik, says Matt. Yeah, I like Rozenstruik too. Not sure if you've already broken down Anders versus Pickett. Just wanted to note that people are putting a ton of confidence in Anders. He's 1-5 in his last 6. Loser gets cut. Pickett is live, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't think Pickett. I don't think Pickett has. I don't think he's live at all. I think he's terrible. But this is MMA. You just never know. Let's see. Oh shit, my guy Ian McGarry in the house. His boo just gave him permission to watch Just the Tip. It's past his bedtime, and she finally caved in. Hi, dude, Ian. This is way past your bedtime, man. You're in Ireland. You are from Ireland. You are an Irish person. So that means right now it's got to be what? 5 a.m., 6 a.m.? Dude, you're way past your bedtime, and I appreciate you staying up to watch Just the Tip with me, your host, Uncle Weezy. Congratulations on a really clinical and nice victory over Jeff Neal a couple weeks ago. Ian Gary, we'll see what's up next for our guy, the undefeated Ian the Future Gary. Real fight picks, you're wrong. Anders wins, and it won't even be close. I agree with Matt on this one. Real fight picks, I don't like Jamie Pickett at all. Fubu saying, look at the level of guys that are beating Anders, and then look at the ones that are beating Jamie. Yeah, and even like Anders had a couple of close losses that should have been wins. I mean, he beat Jun Young Park, and I'm not just saying that because I had a plus 180 ticket on Anders. I mean, I went back and I watched that fight, and I'm like, oh man, how did Jun Young Park get this decision? Yeah, Anders, and I thought Anders beat Machida too. That was a very low volume 5-round fight, but I thought he did more damage in that fight. So yeah, man, no doubt about it. Ian saying he looks like Ariel Helwani. What are your thoughts on Ariel? I like him. I don't really watch Ariel that much, but he does his own thing. He started his own. He believed in himself, and he went out there and he made himself very successful in this MMA world. He's got a very highly rated show. He talks to all the top people in the sport. So I hope to be 25% as successful doing what I'm doing as Ariel Helwani has been in his career. So I mean, I'm not going to talk about what I think about his personality or anything like that. That's not important. I think what's more important is the legacy that you leave, and he's done a great job leaving a legacy for himself in this sport. It is Ariel. We got, oh my God, I made it live. Oi! Congrats on episode 101, says MMA Bill Counter. Good to have you hanging out in here, man. Thank you. This is episode number 101 of Just the Tip. So thanks for being along with you guys. We got Anders and Kennedy versus OSP a few weeks later as a parlay. Yeah, I mean, Kennedy's going to destroy OSP, I think. I'm sorry, Pickett isn't live, family. I agree. Yeah. Rozenstruik, my homie, is knocking bro out. I can't wait for that fight. That's a great main event. Gaziev versus Rozenstruik. I can live with the differences in opinions. It's an opinion. Up until the fight happens, it's nothing but an opinion. Yeah, Pickett lost 6 of last 8, and the wins are over Ugly Joe Holmes and Laureano Staropoli in a fight where if you are a fan of cage pushing, then that is in your top 5 fights of all time. Pickett versus Staropoli. And we still love you, Real Fight Picks. Yeah, he says, thanks, everybody. Bill Connor, I appreciate that. Watch Pickett win a DQ or something, and Real Fight Picks is going to be in here throwing it in our faces next week. We got Kadeem saying, oi, thanks for all you do as always. Appreciate you, Kadeem. Let's get on to this next fight, man. We're an hour and 10 minutes into the show. 64 of you's hanging out live in here. And we're going to talk about, I believe, that fight. It is going to be Eryk Anders versus Jamie Pickett. So let me see. I think that one is over here. There we go. We got those stats up on the screen. Going to get a sip of my bookie tears here. And let's start talking about Eryk Anders versus Jamie Pickett. That's Vinicius Oliveira. There we go. Eryk Anders, a minus 450 favorite. Dear God. Jamie Pickett plus 350. Fight doesn't go to decision here. Minus 110 for this fight. Okay. So let's first start talking about your boy Eryk Anders. He's the southpaw in this southpaw versus orthodox matchup. Eryk has the overall and UFC experience advantages with 1 more pro fight, 60 more minutes of pro cage time, and 4 less years as a pro fighter. So that makes Eryk the much more active fighter as well. Eryk also has the UFC experience advantage with 8 more fights and 115 more minutes of octagon time. Now, Eryk is the more opportunistic finisher in the UFC with a 57% finish rate in 7 UFC wins, all 4 of those finishes coming by way of KO. And he's finished 2/3 of his 15 pro wins inside the distance. He's got 1 submission and 9 knockouts. Eryk is also the much more durable fighter, having been finished in 2 of 8 pro losses, 1 by knockout, 1 by submission, compared to Pickett, who has been finished in 6 of his 10 pro losses and in 4 of his 6 UFC losses. So I definitely see Anders having the durability advantage in this matchup. And Anders is the more dangerous striker. He's displayed power at the UFC level with 7 knockdowns in 16 fights and a 1.7% distance knockdown percentage. Eryk has 4 UFC wins by knockout to go along with those impressive power numbers, while Jamie Pickett has never landed a UFC knockdown in 8 UFC fights. And he's been knocked down 4 times and knocked out twice in the UFC, has Jamie Pickett. So neither guy is much of a minute winner at distance, but Anders definitely rates as the more dangerous striker. And Eryk's a high-volume wrestler. And he's demonstrated a high-volume wrestling and clinch game attack that allows him to win minutes. Eryk is averaging 1.54 takedowns per 15 minutes on 6.4 attempts. He's got 80% takedown defense, and he outcontrols his opponents 24.6% to 8.3%, winning almost 75% of the control time positions his fights are in. Pickett allows 34% control time to his opponents, and he wins less than 28% of the control time positions his fights are in. So Anders has shown the ability to win minutes where Pickett loses them, and that gives him an edge in the clinch and the ground exchanges in this fight. And Eryk has fought, beaten, and lost to the more experienced UFC competition with the better win-loss record. So he's got a strength to schedule advantage as well, does Eryk Anders. Now, Jamie Pickett's advantages, this is going to be a very short part of the show. He's 1.5 years younger, he's 1 inch taller, and he's got a 5-inch reach advantage. And outside of that, I don't think Jamie has any advantages in this fight. So this is a big step down in competition for Eryk Anders. Jamie Pickett has shown absolutely nothing but the ability to get the living shit kicked out of him at this level. His 2 wins against Joe Holmes and Laureano Staropoli are 2 of the worst fights that have ever happened in the UFC. Anders is better everywhere, and this should absolutely be easy money for him. I could see him getting a KO, a submission, or just dominating the clinch and ground exchanges on his way to a decision win. I don't see a path for Pickett here, and I'll pick Eryk Anders to wear on Pickett and finish with a second-round KO. But I'm not touching this fight with a 10-foot pole. It's easy money for Anders, but I don't think it's easy money for gamblers. I think there's, trying to pick whether Andres gets this done by decision, by submission, or by KO is risky. I think parlaying a guy like Anders, who hasn't put a stamp on a lot of fights recently, at minus 450 is also very risky. And I think any bets on the Jamie Pickett side are just dead money. So this is a very easy stay away for me. And I'm going to pick Anders to get this fight done inside the distance by KO in round number 2. All right. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. We got fight doesn't go as minus 110. That's a smash. It's not bad. I looked at it on the prop template. Let's have a look. You guys can have the benefit of my prop template here for free. And if we're looking at fight doesn't go, I had it at minus 115, right? So 53.5% is the price of that bet at minus 115. But 57% of fights finish inside the distance. For Anders, it's 6 of 14 fights that have finished inside the distance. And for Pickett, it's 4 of 8. So 45.45% of their fights have finished inside the distance. So they go to decision more than what the division does as a whole. So it's underpriced here, according when you compare the price of the bet to the benchmark for the division, but it's a little bit overpriced in comparison to the past performance of the two fighters. But I also do believe that Anders being a big favorite here and Pickett showing less and less durability as his career goes on makes it a lot more likely that it's Anders inside the distance. But I'm wondering if we get a better price, how much better the price is for Anders inside the distance compared to that fight doesn't go. Yeah, Anders is plus 145, and I'd rather just bet plus 145 because, I mean, like, even though Jamie Pickett obviously has some finishing equity, he's a big, strong dude. He hits pretty hard. He just couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. So I don't know if he's finding a finish here. Maybe just go Anders inside the distance at plus 145, but I don't know, man. I'm going to stay away from this one. Low key is smacker. Fighters both looking for finishes to stay in. Yeah, that's true. Fubu saying people are going to dog me for this, but at plus 250, I like Pedro. I get his durability is in question, but I think he's the better fighter all around outside of maybe power, chin, and takedowns. He's live. Yeah, we're going to talk about that fight. I can handle a DQ loss. Yeah, that's Jimmy Pickett's only advantage is the ability to lose and stay in the UFC. That's true, man. I'm here to enjoy Weezy's brutal honesty. Thank you, man. Wow, Real Fight Picks is right. Pickett 22nd KO. That could be. You never know, dude. Anders minus 450. No way. I agree, man. I feel like both these guys are not going to be pushing the pace. I like the over. That's going to be a butthole clencher, but it could happen, man. Jeff Bruno is saying I got Anders inside the distance at plus 145 a few days ago. It's a good number. I like it. I think Anders has a big wrestling and power advantage, but minus 450, I puked. Yeah, man. Close fights go to decision, but insurance for DQ or injury. Yep. All right, you guys, let's move on to this next fight. It's going to be Matt Danger Schnell at plus 255. The danger is that he's not going to show up for the fight, and he's going to be going up against Astro Boy Steve Erceg, minus 305 favorite on the Erceg side. Fight doesn't go to decision here, and minus 215. Let's get these stats up on the screen for you guys. There we go. And let's first start talking about Matt Danger Schnell. So Matt has more experience overall and in the UFC compared to Erceg. He's got 12 more pro fights, 45 more minutes of pro cage time, and 3.5 more years as a pro fighter. Matt also has 10 more UFC fights and 65 more minutes of octagon time. He's been the better finisher overall compared to Erceg, a 69% finish rate for Schnell, 64% finish rate overall for Erceg. But in the UFC, Schnell has finished 3 of his 6 UFC wins, all by triangle choke, 50% finish rate for him, while Erceg, both of his wins were by decision. And Matt has shown solid distance striking metrics in a big sample size, over 78 minutes of distance striking. He's got a positive 0.33 distance striking differential, 37% accuracy, and 62% defense. Matt's a solid boxer. He likes to pressure at distance, move his head, and throw combinations in the pocket. The problem is the chin. Schnell has landed 1 knockdown in 12 fights, but he's absorbed 5. He gets knocked down on 1.58% of the distance strikes that land against him, and 4 of his 7 career losses come by way of knockout. Matt's a solid minute winner at distance, but a very bad moment loser. And Matt doesn't wrestle offensively much. He only has 4 takedowns in 12 UFC fights, and he averages 0.63 takedowns per 15 minutes. Matt prefers to keep fights standing, but when he's on the mat, he has a solid submission game. Matt's 9-2 to the submission in his pro career, and he's attempting 1.1 submissions per 15 minutes at the UFC level. Over 82% of Matt's fights do stay standing, but when he gets put on his back, you really have to watch out for his triangle choke, as all 3 of Matt's submission wins in the UFC have come by way of the triangle. And Matt naturally has the strength to schedule advantage overall and in the UFC. He's fought, beaten, and lost to the more experienced guys with better records. Now, Steve Erceg is 5.5 years younger, and he's 1 inch taller than Matt. Steve's a very tall and long flyweight. Like Matt Schnell, Steve is also a very well-rounded fighter. He has solid striking. He uses his length well. He flashes some power on the feet, and he mixes up his weapons really well as well. Steve was a national wrestling champion back in Australia, and his ground game is also very dangerous, and he constantly hunts for chokes on the mat. Steve has 6 wins and 0 losses to the submission in his career. He's 1-0 to the KO, and he's 4-1 to the decision. So he's got multiple ways to get the job done. And he's got a positive 0.42 distance striking differential at the UFC level with above average 40% accuracy. He stays busy. He attempts more than 2.34 more distance strikes per minute than his opponents do. And he's flashed some power in the UFC as well. Steve is also a pressure fighter on the feet. Like Schnell, Steve also likes to pressure at distance. He has solid low leg kicks. He stays behind a fast and snappy jab, and his straight right has power and precision. This should be a close fight on the feet. However, the biggest difference between these 2 guys is their durability. Erceg has a chin on him. He can definitely absorb big shots, while Schnell is the opposite. I have to give Erceg a huge durability and moment-winning advantage here while this fight is on the feet and while it's on the ground as well, because Steve has a very opportunistic submission game. His ability to snatch up submissions and scrambles is extremely impressive. He's constantly looking to wrap up your neck, whether it's with his front choke and guillotine series or whether it's with his opportunistic back takes, which sets up his rear naked choke. Steve is very dangerous on the mat, and even more so in the scrambles. He's 6-0 to the submission in his pro career, and he gets 2 takedowns per 15 minutes on 6 attempts in the UFC, and he's showing 78% takedown defense in his own right. He outcontrols his opponents 26.5% to 11%, winning over 71% of the control time positions his fights are in, which also gives him an above average grappling efficiency rating. Steve is damn good wherever the fight goes. So this is an interesting prospect versus veteran matchup here in the flyweight division. Steve's a -305 favorite at the time of writing, and I see why. He's 5.5 years younger. He's the far more durable and dangerous fighter on the feet. He's the more likely guy to win minutes with his wrestling and top game, and his submission grappling is opportunistic and dangerous. Schnell has pulled out of so many fights lately. It's clear that the cut down to 125 pounds is brutalizing him at 34 years old. He had to shave his head to make weight in his last fight versus Nicolau, and the durability is seriously in question, having been finished in 6 of his 7 career losses. Excuse me. There appears to be 2 different trajectories going on here. Seeing Schnell on the scales is going to be very important. If he shows up looking good, making weight easily, he could easily be live to keep this fight close. But I think the more likely result is Matt struggles to make weight again and underperforms as a result on Saturday. There are so many reasons to like Erceg in this spot, and I'm not getting cute here. I think Steve wins this fight, although I feel he's equally likely to finish as he is to win by decision. The under 1.5 has gotten juiced to the tits at plus 100, which is very expensive. And I think Schnell's fragility and Erceg's finishing ability are both being slightly overrated just a little in both cases. So I think the over 1.5 rounds at minus 130 isn't a bad bet this week. Sure, it could easily go tits up, but I think all the finishing equity is on the Erceg side because Steve is extremely durable. So instead of betting that under 1.5 at plus 100, I'd instead play Erceg rounds 1 and 2 and get a better price and risk less units to win more. But I'm going to pick Steve Erceg to win this fight by decision here. Astro Boy by decision, but I don't think you really want to have too strong of a take on this fight until we see what Matt Schnell looks like at weigh-ins on Friday. That's going to be very important information to cap this fight properly. All right, let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. We got Matt saying this fight is not going to decision. I could see it finishing inside the distance for sure. Danger to UFC matchmaking, yes, sir. We got Beef Fatty in the room, and he's got the Indian Army raid coming on in here. We love it. We got Prince of Mischief saying, I'm skipping this card for obvious reasons, but if I had one play, it'd be Erceg inside the distance. Schnell has a damaged chin, yes. Khabib saying this card can easily be swept. Yeah, there's a lot of favorites here, man, and if they all cover, it's going to be an easy one to sweep. Fubu saying his prop markets haven't dropped yet. You guys in the U.S. have a massive advantage there. Yes, just being able to get to those to bet online and get to those early props does really help for sure. We got Matt saying pick your spots and you should be good. Damn right. We got XBL on Twitch in the room. What is up, dude? Good to see you hanging out in here. We got Prince of Mischief saying if I have one bet on this card, I'll start forcing bets, maybe live bets. Yeah, I hear you, man. This card really is so bad. I think it's fun fights. It's just a bad gambling card. And DGen for life saying, oi, Schnell has a dusty chin, maybe the dustiest in the UFC now that Phil Oz has been cut. And so is Shannon Ross. So he's one of the guys that we're worried about. I think Malcolm Gordon is retired. So, yeah, and Jason Witt's gone too. So those are some of the worst chins that we've had. Now it's, Danger Schnell is definitely on that list for sure. All right, you guys, let's move on to the next fight, which is going to be Umar Nurmagomedov at minus 1,000. And I'm telling you guys, I think he wins this fight. And he's going up against the UFC debutant in Bekzat Almakhan. Bekzat is plus 700 here, and the fight doesn't go to decision, is minus 150 for this fight. So we got the stats up on the screen. Let's first start talking about the advantages on the Umar Nurmagomedov side, and that's going to take a minute. So let me get a sip of this beverage. Umar's a big bantamweight. He's going to be 1 inch taller than Bekzat. Not sure if there's a reach advantage yet because we don't have the official measurements on Almakhan. Umar has the overall and UFC experience advantage here. He's got 1 more pro fight and 50 more minutes of professional cage time, in addition to 4 more fights at the UFC level and 30 more minutes of octagon time, as Bekzat will be making his UFC debut on Saturday. And Umar is a future bantamweight champion, if we're being honest. He's 16-0 as a pro. He's equally as dangerous of a minute winner as he is a moment winner. He's 7-0 to the sub, 2-0 to the KO, and 7-0 to the decision. This kid is so good everywhere. His striking is dynamic and flashy. His wrestling is incredible. He has a very opportunistic submission game. He looks the part and he shows no weaknesses in the cage. And Umar is putting up video game numbers across all areas. He's got a positive 3.92 distance striking differential, which we see right there. 60% accuracy, 77% defense. He lands 5.16 distance strikes per minute, and he somehow only absorbs 1.24 distance strikes per minute, 3.36 less than the divisional average. He's got 1 UFC knockdown, and he's absorbed 0. He's got 1 UFC win by knockout over Hani Barcelos with a cheeky short left that Hani never saw, and it slept him. Hani was out before he hit the ground. Umar does a great job of maintaining range with his jab, teep, and push kicks, and his question mark kick is fast and accurate. His ability to stay defensively responsible by maintaining range with his wide variety of kicks, combined with his precise counter striking when his opponents try to close the distance, make him a very frustrating opponent to deal with in the cage. And with the last name Nurmagomedov, and knowing that he's Khabib's cousin, you know this dude can wrestle and grapple. Umar is 7-0 to the submission in his pro career, and his UFC grappling metrics are just as impressive as his UFC striking metrics. He's averaging 4.28 takedowns per 15 minutes on 9.5 attempts. He gets his takedown attempts at a 45% clip, and he outcontrols his opponents 48% to 0.74%, winning over 98% of the control time positions that his fights are in. He does a fantastic job of chaining his takedown attempts together. He rarely gets the first one, but the second or third usually gets you down. And once you're there, it's hard to do anything but play defense. He's so adept at taking the back that it makes it almost impossible to stand up without him getting to a dominant position. And while Umar is in control time positions, he lands 4.52 clinch and ground strikes per minute spent in those control time positions, and he only absorbs 0.19. So he doesn't just hold you down and hunt for passes and subs. This guy gets you down, and he does damage while you're there, and he uses that damage to set up his passes to dominant positions. Once Umar is in a dominant position, he gets to your back, and 6 of his 7 career submission wins come by way of rear naked choke. Umar is a suffocating grappler who wins minutes and moments with his wrestling, top control, and ground and pound and submission game. And Umar has a big strength to schedule advantage in this fight, having been at the UFC level for 4 fights. And he also fought the better brand of regional scene competition compared to Bekzat as well. This is a huge step down in competition for Umar, and it reeks of a tune-up fight for him after taking off more than a year due to injury. Now, Bekzat Almakhan is going to be 1.5 years younger than Umar, and he looks like a promising prospect. He's only 26 years old. He already has 15 pro fights. He turned pro at the age of 19, and he's accumulated a 14-1 pro record, with the only loss of his career coming in the second round of his fight against Sultan Ulu. This was the 3rd fight that Almakhan was in that night. He dropped Sultan in the first, but he didn't get the finish and gassed out. And due to it being his 3rd fight that night, he was finished in the second round. This kid's record is very impressive at 14-1, and he's obviously a dangerous striker when you consider the fact that he has a 12-0 career record to the knockout. He has a couple of highlight reel finishes with head kicks in the Vargas and the Gloria fights, and he had a spectacular finish of Jan Faraz with 3 seconds left in the 3rd round with a perfect right hook that landed on the chin. Bekzat is explosive on the feet, and he's landed a ton of knockdowns on the regional scene. So Umar is going to have to be careful to maintain distance against this kid so he doesn't get sparked. Now, this is a hell of a tough ask for Bekzat, making your UFC debut against Umar Nurmagomedov. Umar's been out for over a year now after having to pull out of the Corey Sandhagen main event in Nashville due to an undisclosed injury. This looks like a tune-up spot for Umar to get back into his run at the top 5 of the bantamweight division. Umar is minus 1,200 here, and it doesn't surprise me. It's hard to imagine anyone beating this guy right now, much less a 26-year-old kid from the Kazakh regional scene. But this is MMA, and anything is possible. From what I've seen on tape, the easiest way to beat Almakhan is to wrestle him and get his back to the mat. Bekzat is 12-0 to the KO, but he's only 1-1 to the submission. And the ground game is where Umar really has the biggest advantage in this matchup. It wouldn't be smart for Umar to stand at range with this dude because there's a much easier path with his wrestling and his grappling games here. I see Umar taking Bekzat down, getting to his back, and finishing with the rear naked choke in the very first round. So the pick is going to be Umar Nurmagomedov to win this fight by submission in round number 1. All right, let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Yeah, Pauga's on that list of shit chins, that's for sure. We've got Justin Statham gets cash. Umar by first or second round sub is his prediction. I'm right there with you, brother. And then Usman Nurmagomedov will be in the UFC soon too. Yeah, we'll see about that. But yeah, I know that he's dominating right now on the regional scene as well. All right, you guys, let's get on to this next fight, which is going to be the return, the long anticipated and awaited return of Alex Perez, who's a plus 290 underdog to Muhammad Mokaev at minus 355. The fight doesn't go to decision for this fight, sitting at minus 135 on BetOnline Sportsbook. So let's get these stats up on the screen for you guys. And we're going to first start talking about Alex Perez, who we haven't seen in a minute. Alex has the overall and UFC experience advantages. He's got 19 more pro fights than Muhammad does, 130 more minutes of pro cage time, and 9 more years as a pro fighter. Alex also has 4 more fights at the UFC level compared to Muhammad Mokaev. And Alex will be the much more dangerous striker in this matchup. While Mokaev is a dedicated crotch sniffer who avoids distance striking at all costs, Alex is an accomplished minute and moment winner at distance. He's got a positive 1.48 distance striking differential, 42% accuracy, and 67% defense Perez has. That's very good. He's landed 3 knockdowns in 9 UFC fights, and he's got a 1.73% distance knockdown percentage, very high for the division. Alex is 5-1 to the knockout as a pro. He's got 2 UFC wins by way of KO, a leg kick KO over Jussier Formiga, and a dismantling of Jose Shorty Torres, both coming in the first round. Alex is very aggressive early in fights. He gets into the pocket and he loves to sling bombs. I don't see this fight having much in the way of striking involved because Muhammad is outgunned there and will want to make this a wrestling match. And Alex has plus grappling metrics at the UFC level. He's a former high school wrestling coach, and he's an active wrestler at the UFC level. He's averaging 3 takedowns per 15 minutes on 6.83 attempts. He's getting his takedowns at a 44% clip, and he's defending them at 71%, both above average for the division. He outcontrols his opponents 38.5% to 6%, winning over 86% of the control time positions his fights are in. Although Alex isn't nearly as committed of a wrestler as Mokaev is, his grappling efficiency ratings are superior to Muhammad's. So it will be interesting to see how he's able to deal with the nonstop wrestling pressure of Muhammad Mokaev in this matchup. And Alex has, without question, fought the much better brand of UFC competition overall compared to Mokaev. However, the strength of their wins is actually pretty similar. Now, Muhammad Mokaev, 8.5 years younger than Alex Perez, and he's going to be 1 inch taller, and he's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. So there are significant measurables advantages on the Mokaev side here. And he's got the better finish rate overall as a pro. 82% finish rate for Mokaev, only 50% for Alex Perez. And in the UFC, Mokaev has finished 4 of his 5 wins, an 80% finish rate compared to 67% for Alex Perez. Muhammad is 7 wins and 0 losses to the submission, while Perez is 7 wins and 5 losses to the sub. So there's definitely a good chance Mokaev gets a sub with the way this stylistic matchup stacks up. And Muhammad's nonstop wrestling is a serious problem for his opponents. The pressure and takedown attempts never stop. He sticks to you like glue. He refuses to fuck off, and he gives you no room to breathe or no distance to strike. Mokaev attempts a mind-boggling 12.16 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's getting 6.47 of them, getting his takedowns at a 53% clip. He spends 78% of his octagon time in control time positions, so almost 4 out of 5 seconds in his total UFC cage time is spent either in clinch control or ground control situations, and he's out-controlling his opponents 67% to 11%, winning over 85% of the control time positions that his fights are in. He has the conditioning to push this pace for the full 15 minutes, and he honestly doesn't care if his fights suck and are completely devoid of action. This style is incredibly effective, so there's no reason for him to change it. He's so relentless with his wrestling that he usually breaks his opponents under that pressure and finds third-round submissions. Muhammad is a very difficult stylistic matchup for anyone at this level. So this is a nightmare matchup for Alex Perez. 10 of Perez's last 12 matchups have been canceled. He can't stay healthy, and making the walk on fight day almost never happens for Perez. And this is as good of a matchup for him to pull out of as any. I mean, Perez is the more experienced fighter and the much more dangerous and powerful striker, but that probably won't matter, as Mokaev should be sniffing crotch less than 5 seconds into this fight, and Perez probably gets next to no time to strike at distance. Perez is an accomplished wrestler and grappler in his own right, but we haven't seen him deal with this kind of a stylistic matchup yet in the UFC. Perez has never faced more than 2 takedown attempts in any of his UFC fights, and he can expect at least that many in the first 30 seconds of this fight. So I think there's a high probability that Mokaev gets him down and finds a submission in a scramble quickly. Perez has only made the walk twice since 2020, and there are serious concerns to where he is as a fighter right now, and we don't have that on the Mokaev side. These guys are at 2 completely different places in their careers right now, and unless Mokaev fights like a complete dumbass, I see him getting early takedowns, finding Alex's back in his scramble, and finishing with a rear naked choke in the first round. I'm not going to overthink this one. It's going to be Muhammad Mokaev by first round submission. Mokaev submission round 1. Let's see. We got Fubu saying if he wins, they can make Perez versus Kopp for the canceled fight king belt. Yeah, man. I mean, Perez and Kopp both can't make the walk either, man. It's crazy. And Kopp, the last time that he was supposed to fight and had a fight canceled, it was when he was supposed to fight Alex Perez. So will Alex actually show up is the question. And I don't think, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. As these guys get older and they decide that they're going to be feather or flyweights for their whole career, I think some of these guys hit 32, 33 and their body tells them, look, man, we're not cutting down to 126 anymore. Fuck off. Move up a weight class or stop fighting. And I think that Perez and Schnell are both in that situation right now. But let's move on to the co-main event here, as it is going to be Vitor Petrino versus Tyson Pedro. It's going to be a real banger. And let's see. We've got Vitor Petrino minus 319. Tyson Pedro plus 269. Fight doesn't go to decision here. Minus 290 for this fight. So let's first start talking about Vitor Petrino here. He's 6 years younger than Tyson Pedro. Vitor's still only 26 years old, and he made his debut on Dana White's Contender Series when he was 24. This kid is scary good already for his age. And I will say with a great deal of confidence that Petrino has the superior conditioning, durability, and heart in this matchup. Pedro looks for the door the first chance he can find when things aren't going his way. Tyson has literally never won a fight that's went past the 5-minute mark. He got finished by Mauricio Shogun Rua in the year of our Lord 2018, and he lost to Modestas Bukauskas and Ovince St. Preux. Petrino has been in back and forth wars and shown the ability to handle adversity well, fight at a high pace for a surprisingly long time, and land with power at any point of the fight. If Tyson doesn't find the button early, Vitor probably breaks him. And on the feet, Vitor is pretty stiff. He doesn't move his head, and he's very hittable, but this dude has serious power, and he's also durable enough to take one to give one, and chances are he hits harder than you. Vitor is 7-0 to the KO as a professional, and he's landing a knockdown on 1.7% of the distance strikes that he lands. And where Vitor has been surprisingly good in the UFC is with his wrestling and grappling games. For a guy with only one career win by submission, we've seen Vitor grapple quite a bit in the UFC. He's getting 5.18 takedowns per 15 minutes on 7.34 attempts. He gets his takedowns at a phenomenal 70.5%, and he's out-controlling his opponents 49% to 14%, winning over 77% of the control time positions his fights have been in. And he's active when fights get to the ground, averaging 1.29 submission attempts per 15 minutes and 1.73 reverses per 15 minutes. Vitor can really push a pace with his wrestling, top control, and ground and pound if he doesn't like things how things are going on the feet. And that's pretty scary if you think about it. Now, Tyson Pedro, he's going to be the taller and longer dude with a 1-inch height and a 2-inch reach advantage. Tyson has the overall and UFC experience advantages with 4 more pro fights, 5.5 more years as a pro fighter, along with 7 more fights at the UFC level and about a half hour more of octagon time in comparison to Vitor. And Tyson's a front-loaded finisher. He's just as dangerous with his power on the feet as he is with his opportunistic submission game. Tyson has a 100% finish rate in 10 pro wins. He's got 5 knockouts and 5 submissions, and all of these finishes come in the very first round. And Tyson's striking numbers are not bad considering he's very low volume, only attempting 6.73 distance strikes per minute, as you can see right there, which is 3.18 less than the divisional average. But he has a positive 1.52 distance striking differential, way above average 56.75% accuracy, and way above average 65.5% defense. And he's got a 3.5% distance knockdown percentage. And these are all way above average for the division. So Tyson's been working on his striking at City Kickboxing, and he showed some serious power, knocking out the very durable Anton the Pleasure Man Turkalj in his last fight in the first round, a feat that Vitor Petrino was unable to accomplish when he fought the Pleasure Man. So, you got Petrino is the much younger guy here. He's 6 years younger than Tyson Pedro. And right now, there's a lot of questions as to where Tyson Pedro is in his career, because Tyson came off of back-to-back losses versus Ovin St. Preux and then Shogun Rua. And then after that Shogun Rua loss, he takes over 3 years off. He has ACL surgery, which gets botched. They literally put the new ligament through the wrong hole in the knee. So then that wasn't found out for a while. He goes back in, finds out that the surgery was botched and needs to be redone. He gets the surgery redone. And then he comes back, like I said, over 3 years later after that Shogun Rua fight. And he puts together back-to-back wins over Ike Villanueva and Harry Hunsucker. And so we learn nothing there, because if he can't beat those guys, then he doesn't belong here in the first place. And he knocks them both out in the first round. And then he comes out and he looks like absolute dog shit versus Modestas Bukauskas. Fought scared. I mean, he probably actually won that fight. When you go back and you watch that fight, you could easily give it to Pedro by decision. But even if he did win that fight, the fans lost. That was a garbage fight. And he showed Modestas Bukauskas the kind of respect that you would show John Jones. He looked scared out there. He looked scared to get hit. He looked scared to fight. Now, he came out and he said that he was sick for that fight, which makes perfect sense because he fought like he had the flu. He fought like he had nothing in the tank that night. But then he comes back and as basically a pick'em against Anton Turkalj, he goes out there and flatlines him. So Tyson is still only 32 years old. He still only has 14 professional fights and 75 minutes of pro cage time, 5.36 minutes average fight time as a professional. So he's still obviously a very dangerous guy early in fights, as is Vitor Petrino. But the things that we see here is that Petrino is not only twice as voluminous on the feet, he's attempting 11.41 distance strikes per minute, while Pedro only attempts 6.73. And clearly, both of these guys have got a ton of power. But Petrino attempts 7.34 takedowns per 15 minutes, while Pedro only attempts 2.5. Pedro's only gotten 4 takedowns, less than 1 takedown per 15 minutes, while Petrino's getting 5.18. So I kind of feel like Petrino, wherever this fight goes, whether it's with offensive takedown attempts, whether it's in the clinch, whether it's at distance, I think Vitor is going to be doing more. So I think Vitor is the more likely guy to win minutes here. And I think both guys are equally likely to win moments. But as the fight goes on, I think it's just obviously a lot less likely that we're going to see Tyson Pedro win moments because he's never once in 10 and a half years as a professional fighter demonstrated the ability to do jack shit in the second or third round of any of his fights. So, I mean, like, he's getting finished by fucking Shogun Hua in the third round. I mean, like, so I don't know what's going on with Tyson Pedro. There's just a lot of missing information there. And to lay the kind of juice that they're asking us to lay on a guy like Petrino, who hasn't really proven much either. I mean, like, his wins are over Turkali, Prochnio, and Bukowskis. You know, those are low-level UFC wins, you know? So I see why, you know, Pedro's the underdog here. I mean, you can't lose to Modestas Bukowskis in 2023 and be a favorite against anybody in the light heavyweight division. And Petrino's a scary young fighter who's going to be getting better and making improvements. So I feel like I have to pick Petrino here, but I don't hate anybody that's taking the shot on Tyson Pedro. But I think maybe the best way to play it is Pedro rounds 1 or 2, because I don't see him winning minutes. I don't see him banking 2 of these 3 rounds against Petrino, because Petrino just is much more likely to win minutes in the grappling exchanges here because he has more conditioning and he just does more out there. And you don't have to count on him getting it done in the first. Petrino can win in the second and third rounds just as easily as he can in the first, which is something that Pedro can't do. So I'm going to go with Vitor Petrino here to win this fight. And I think he's actually going to take this a while. And I don't think he's going to finish Tyson Pedro. And I think he's going to win this one by decision. So the pick is going to be Vitor Icao Petrino to win this fight by decision over Tyson Pedro. All right, let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Yeah, I like your first read. It's Erceg versus Mokaev. Yeah, and that's what I said on Stat Diggers, that, you know, once Schnell pulls out and once Perez pulls out, it's going to be Erceg versus Mokaev. And I'll bet you at some point, Mokaev's coach and Erceg's coach have both told them, hey, maybe we should take a look at some Mokaev tape and some Erceg tape here, just to make sure that if our opponent drops out, that we're actually going to get somebody that might show up and be there on fight day. Yeah, Kopp missed weight against Nicolau, and he didn't take the fight. Yeah, I know. That's true. So I said that Kopp's last pullout was Perez, but then Kopp pulled out against Nicolau. I mean, it's crazy, man. Fubu, I'll argue Boob. I think it's at least 80% him pulling out of the fights. It's close. Bob Spikerman's in the room. Welcome, my man, saying let's go. We got Justin saying Vitor's second round finish. We got Colby Saul saying, what's up, Weezy? Would you ever do a watch party somewhere in Chicago with parties with fans, B-dubs or some bar? Yeah, I would. I'd love to do that somewhere in Chicago. Go out and meet all the local UFC fans here in Chicago who watch my content and bet on fights and drink some beers. And we should do that for one of these weekends. I know I'm going to be in Florida for $2.99, and I'm going to be in Paris and Rome at the end of March and at the beginning of April, but maybe in the summertime we can pull something like that off. He blew out his knee in the Shogun fight. He still should have beaten him. He could have blown out both knees and both elbows and probably still found a way to beat a 47-year-old Shogun Hua. Pedro is going to be reaming that O. Yeah, I know. He was sick in the Bukowskis fight also. He should have pulled out. Yeah, he should have, because he looked like dog shit out there. Pedro doesn't pull out. He finishes inside. Yes, sir. There we go. Kiwi Boo with the wordplay. Impression of an impression, says Habib. We got Get Gains, Get Girls, men's lifestyle channel, men's lifestyle channel saying good breakdown. Appreciate you, my man. And we got Rem Dog saying, feel like Petrino could end these fights earlier, but he's using them for practice, trying out new things. That would be very confident of him to do that. But he's a good young fighter, man. And I think the sky's the limit for Petrino, too. He's still only 26 years old. So we can be expecting improvements here, but this is a step up in competition. And Pedro is a very dangerous guy who's fought the better brand of competition over the long term. So it's just, since I don't know where Pedro is, I feel much safer not laying the juice on Petrino here and not taking the plus money on Pedro either. That's just my read, though. All right, you guys, let's move on to this main event, which is going to be a banger, in my opinion. It's going to be Jairzinho, Biggie Boy Rozenstruik going up against Shamil Gaziev. Rozenstruik, a plus 140 underdog. Gaziev, the minus 160 favorite. Fight doesn't go to decision. Juice to the tits at minus 1,400. The bookies don't think this one is going the full 5, ladies and gentlemen. Let's first start talking about Biggie Boy Rozenstruik. He's the more experienced fighter overall and in the UFC. He's got 6 more pro fights, 70 more minutes of pro cage time in 8 more years as a pro fighter. And he also has the UFC experience advantage with 11 more fights and over 85 minutes of octagon time. Rozenstruik is a very experienced kickboxer with 82 non-MMA fights. And he's got next level power. Yeah, so 82 fights for Rozenstruik were kickboxing fights. People forget that this guy has the death touch. He's finished 12 of his 13 pro wins inside the distance by knockout, and he's finished all 7 of his UFC wins by KO. Jairzinho has 7 knockdowns in 12 UFC fights, and he's landing a knockdown on 3.47% of the distance strikes that he lands. His power carries late in fights. Just ask Alistair Overeem, who got knocked out with less than 10 seconds left of a 25-minute fight by Biggie Boy. He knocked out Alan Crowder with a jab. He knocked out Junior Albini with a cheeky left hook. And then he got the left hook, and then he got a right head kick in there too. He slept Arlovsky with a check left hook after hurting him with 2 heavy jabs. He dropped Junior Dos Santos with a right hook and finished with ground and pound. And he finished Augusto Sakai with the exact same combination that he finished JDS with. His most recent win was a 24-second dismantling of Chris Daukaus that was set up with a jab. You do not want to let this dude back you up to the cage and limit your ability to exit the pocket. And if you stand in front of this guy and trade bombs with him, you better be damn well an elite kickboxer like Ngannou, Volkov, or Gan, or else you are most likely going to get violently served. I think Jairzinho absolutely steamrolls Gaziev on the feet in this fight. He's more experienced, technical, and too sharp and powerful of a counter-striker to lose to Shamil on the feet here. There are levels to this kickboxing game at heavyweight, and Gaziev is not on Jairzinho Rozenstruik's level in a pure striking sense. And Jairzinho has fought, beaten, and lost to the much better brand of competition over his pro career, and it isn't even close. The combined UFC records of the 5 guys who have beaten Jairzinho Rozenstruik in the UFC, 50 wins and 12 losses. Those names: Francis Ngannou, Cyril Gane, Curtis Blades, Alexander Volkov, and Jailton Almeida. Huge strength of schedule advantage here for Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Now, Shamil is 2 years younger and is at least 3 inches taller than Jairzinho. Shamil is a dangerous striker. He has that rare combination of power on the feet blended with a functional wrestling game for a heavyweight. Shamil landed a beautiful left hand against Pavel Dolidko that absolutely stiffed him. He dropped Greg Velasco on Dana White's Contender Series with the first straight right that he threw, and he absolutely disrespected Martin Buday in his UFC debut, walked him down from the word fight, beat 7 shades of shit out of him on the feet. Shamil brings a lot of pressure on the feet, which I love. You have to worry about the striking as well as the wrestling, so he's definitely a difficult opponent to deal with. The striking on its own is very good because he has natural power in both hands. He comes forward and he brings the fight to his opponents. The first 5 fights available on tape for Gaziev show that he wrestles first and he shoots less than 10 seconds into the first round every single time. Shamil can absolutely wrestle, and his ground and pound when he gets on top is very good. Shamil's pressure is so important. He fights the perfect style for his skill set, walking forward, throwing bombs with power in both hands, and he wrestles as well. So he's extremely difficult to weather the storm against early because you either need to be extremely durable and defensively responsible, or you need to get his respect with a big shot in the feet so he fucks off and gives you a chance to breathe. This is a really fun main event. This Gaziev dude has serious upside potential. He's got power. He's got a ton of pressure, which I just love. He's got some durability and a top-notch wrestling and top control game. He lacks conditioning and a lot of experience, but he's very dangerous wherever the fight goes. And it's extremely difficult to last more than 6 or 7 minutes under the intense pressure that Shamil brings. Jairzinho is more experienced overall and in the UFC, and he's an elite kickboxer with crazy power. Jairzinho is a counter striker who stays tight, loves to get into pocket exchanges, and everything he throws has the potential to end your night. Whether it's a jab, cross, hook, or head kick, if you let this guy land clean, it's over, and you just got yourself a concussion. Pressuring Jairzinho is a bad idea unless you're Francis Ngannou and you absolutely avoid trading in the pocket with this guy at all costs, and eating one to give one is inadvisable. Shamil probably needs to wrestle here, but he doesn't have the cardio to wrestle for more than a round or two due to the fact that he's displayed ass cardio in his previous fights. It looked a lot better in the Budai fight, but he looked like he was starting to get tired there as well. But that's not a big deal because he put a fantastic pace on Budai. So I don't care that he got tired in that fight. Any heavyweight would have gotten tired under that kind of offensive output that Shamil put there. But I see this fight finishing early. Either because Gaziev gets a takedown, advances to a dominant position, and finishes with ground and pound, or because Shamil walks onto a Biggie Boy bomb and wakes up a couple of minutes later asking if he's back home in Bahrain already. I think the under 1.5 rounds is a solid parlay piece this week, as both of these guys have a penchant for finishing fights early, and Shamil's relentless pressure, if he brings it like he always does, virtually assures that that happens. I don't think either of these guys want or have the ability to fight for 25 minutes. So I think this fight goes hard right off the bat and finishes in the first or second round. I'm picking Jairzinho Rozenstruik to find the big shot in the second round after surviving Gaziev's wrestling in the first. Biggie Boy by second round KO is the pick, and I think the under 1.5 rounds is a solid play even at minus 200. So we are picking Jairzinho Biggie Boy Rozenstruik to win this one by KO in round number 2. Let's save these picks and let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. If you are on Biggie Boy, play the under 0.5. Yeah, dude, the way that this dude hits, I mean, he could absolutely easily just melt somebody with one punch. And the way that Gaziev pressures on the feet and creates striking exchanges, you know, the opportunity for Biggie Boy to land a big shot either in the first or in the second is absolutely going to be there, unless we see a completely different Shamil Gaziev on Saturday, one that doesn't want to engage and wants to stay on the outside. But I've never seen him fight like that. So he only knows how to walk one direction, and that's forward. And I think that that's going to create a car crash here where somebody gets served probably in the first or second round. So, yeah, man, I feel the same on the under 1.5 as well. So let me give you guys the dog pick for this week. Last week, the dog pick was a push. We picked, well, no, you know what? Let's claim victory. We picked Ricky Turcios to win that plus 3.5 points handicap. And Raul Rosas was so scared by the fact that he was made the Bootsy Collins Memorial Dogs Are Barking pick of the week on the shoulders of a Ricky Turcios comeback that he didn't even bother to show up for the fight, ladies and gentlemen. So the Bootsy Collins Memorial Dogs Are Barking pick of the week on a heater. Technically, it's a push last week because the fight didn't happen, but I think everybody here knows that even though the bookies didn't cash our bets, that we were the winners of that one. But this time, we are going to go with the Jairzinho Rozenstruik money line here for the Bootsy Collins Memorial Dogs Are Barking pick of the week. All right, and we'll get back there. And there it is. So I do like Rozenstruik, and here's the way I'm going to play this, though. I may or may not get to the money line. I want to see where the first and second round knockout props open up. And what I probably am going to do is put a total of 1 unit, spread it out between rounds 1 and 2, so that the payoff will be the same whether the knockout comes in round 1 or 2. And I think I'll probably be able to get something like plus 200 or even better on that, depending on what the first and second round knockout props are like on different sites. But also the Jairzinho Rozenstruik money line at plus 140, I think, is a good way to play this fight. Look, I am a believer in Shamil Gaziev. I think he's a phenomenal fighter and a great prospect. But this is a huge step up in competition. And Martin Budai's punching power and Jairzinho Rozenstruik's punching power are in completely different areas of the spectrum when it comes to heavyweight power in the UFC. So I'm looking for Rozenstruik and that power of his to turn Gaziev into a less dangerous fighter. And if that happens, I see Rozenstruik finding that big shot, whether it's a jab, whether it's a straight right, whether it's a big hook that's thrown as a counter. I see him finding that chin, knocking out Shamil Gaziev in either round 1 or 2. And the Rozenstruik money line at plus 140 and the Rozenstruik first and second round knockout props are going to be my ways to play this fight this week, which brings us to the last order of business of the week. And it is Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. I wonder what you guys are thinking this week, because there are obviously some phenomenal options, you know. If we go here to Cunningham and then we go to the card and we just bring it up here, you know. Now, I'm not going to give you Ludovic Klein because he's minus 800. I'm not going to give you Umar Nurmagomedov because he's minus 1,200. I'm not going to give you Javid Basharat because he's minus 700. You don't need my help with that. That leaves us with guys like, I'm picking Al-Selwadi to win, but I'm not picking him to shave ass. I am picking Christian Leroy Duncan to get a finish. We didn't even break down the Oliveira Sopaj fight, but I've never seen Sopaj fight, so we're not even going to talk about that one. Anders Pickett. I mean, Anders is such a big favorite that I don't want to pick him either. We got Schnell Erceg. We got Mokaev versus Perez. We got Petrino versus Pedro. Those are the options that we have. I wonder what you guys are thinking here. Let's see. We got, yeah, dude. Kiwi says Turquoise won that easily. There's no doubt about it. Yes, won a free dose of amoxicillin. Let's go. We got Night Chat, Night Unk. It's been real. Appreciate your real fight picks. Justin Villegas says it should be Vitor Petrino for the ass shaving of the week. Fubu says it should be Anders. We got Benino saying it should be Muhammad Mokaev. We got Kiwi Brew and Remdog saying that it should be Erceg. Well, I do agree with one of you, and it is my guy Benino. The ass shaving of the week this week is going to be Muhammad Mokaev to shave the ass of Eryk Perez. Of Alex Perez, not Eryk Perez. Because I think that at this point, we just have to assume until we get some kind of information to the contrary that this guy Perez is no longer to fight. He's not fit to fight in the UFC at 125 pounds. These weight cuts are brutalizing him. He can't get to even when he gets to the scale and he makes weight in that 24 hours between the weigh-in and fight day, the doctors take one look at him and they say, nah, son, you can't do this. And the problem with Perez is that he's never faced a guy like Mokaev. Mokaev's just a nightmare of a stylistic matchup. And the one thing that we have seen of Alex Perez is that this guy has been subbed in 5 of his 7 career losses. And Muhammad Mokaev is a guy who finds these opportunistic submissions in scrambles. He can get to your back. He can get an arm bar. He can go for the front choke series and guillotines like he got against Durden and held onto it even after he was picked up and slammed over the head. So, this is a good line for Mokaev. I like the submission prop, but it's getting juiced and it's barely even plus money. But I think Muhammad Mokaev wins this fight by first round submission, just goes through Alex Perez like that. And I think we can count on him to fight in the way that he's been fighting this entire time, which is just to go out there and aggressively wrestle. Muhammad Mokaev, you can see this number right here that I'm highlighting, 21.78%. I mean, he's been in the UFC cage for 58 minutes, and only 12.63 minutes of that has been at distance striking range. He is always wrestling 12.16 takedown attempts per 15 minutes. 80% of his fights taking place in control time positions. And if that happens, I just see Perez getting put into a bad spot and finished via submission. So your Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week, Muhammad Mokaev to shave the ass of Alex Perez. And we're not betting the inside the distance line there at -125. Let me, that was for last week for Muhammad Mokaev. We're just going to leave that like that. And now we'll show it. Yeah. Muhammad Mokaev to shave the ass of Alex Perez. Put him in your parlays. Put Muhammad Mokaev by submission as a bet this week. That is going to be your Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Thank you guys for hanging out live with me here. 2 hours and 10 minutes in. We broke down all these fights. We gave you a dog pick. We got Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week out of the way. I've only got one tracked bet so far this week, and it is the 1.5 unit bet on the Radzhabov finish only prop at +140 on BetOnline Sportsbook. I'm making that bet because I think that Loik is the more durable guy, and I think he's the more powerful guy. So I like that even though he's the underdog, I think he's got more finishing equity in this fight than Al-Selwadi does. So I like getting plus money on that at +140 for 1.5 units. And if this fight goes to decision, we get that money back and it's a push. I'm looking to maybe add the over 1.5 rounds here for Schnell versus Erceg. I'm looking to maybe add Mokaev by submission if the price is right, and a couple other things, but keep in tune that for the Patreon. I will be letting you know, all the Patreon members, all my track bets this week. And hopefully we can put back-to-back big winning weeks together here going into UFC 299, which is the best card of the year thus far. All right, you guys. So Perez has been out for a while. I can see Erceg getting a finish for sure. Yes. Justin saying, or maybe what Aaron Rodgers thinks he took, like if he COVID shots Erceg. Yeah. We got Benito saying by sub. I agree, man. I meant Mokaev, says Michael Panza. I like Mokaev by sub round 2. There you go. Will Mokaev even have an ass to shave? That is a question. But I think if he does show up, yes, that ass will be there to be shaved. We got Mokaev reminds me of George the Curious Monkey. We got Fubu saying, cheers, Weezy. Love your work and banter. Appreciate you, Fubu. Sure, man, he says. And sure, Fubu. Sure, Kiwi. Sure, Fubu. You guys are the best live audience in MMA Twitter, on MMA YouTube. Appreciate all you guys. Hit that thumbs up on your way out. Hit that subscribe if you haven't already. And let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC Vegas 87. See you tomorrow on Pub Sports Radio, 8 o'clock Central Time for the DFS show with DFS by the numbers, Gordo Gambles, and Monk Maddox. And then right back here tomorrow night, 10 o'clock Central Time on Uncle Weezy's YouTube channel for Ask Weezy. You can queue up any questions that you have for about any of these fights, any of these props, money lines, underdog, prize picks, props. We'll take you through all of it so that we can all find ways to make these bookies cry by cashing a bunch of bets together on Saturday. Good night, everybody, and we will see you guys tomorrow.